Hi, everybody. This is Aaron Mesh with Willamette Week. It's our daily Distant Voices series. Today, I'm talking with Amy Hertzfeld-Copple of the Western States Center. Amy, what's your title at the Western States Center?
Sure, I'm the Deputy Director of Programs and Strategic Initiatives, and thanks for having me, Aaron.
Great to have you here. We're talking today because only a few hours ago, your organization arranged with more than 30 leaders in Oregon, mostly I think in the organized labor sector and also in various nonprofits and advocacy organizations, and sent a letter to elected officials that essentially warns that a very dangerous weekend is ahead with the arrival of national Proud Boy adherents to Portland, or it looks a little bit like a revenge rally. And you asked elected officials to make a stand. That comes in the middle of what feels like increasingly out of control violence in the streets of Portland. Last night we saw someone throw Molotov cocktails at police officers. A man was shot to death in downtown last month. It's looking disturbing out there, and I guess my first question for you is, what are you asking elected officials to do about it?
Sure. Yeah, no, that's right. And thanks for that framing. So first, I'll just say that Western States Center is a more than 30-year-old nonprofit civil rights organization based in the Pacific Northwest and Mountain States, and we work to strengthen inclusive democracy. And you're right, we did convene 30 partner groups from across organized labor, statewide, progressive and racial justice and direct service organizations, including a couple of business alliances and faith networks, to join us in a letter calling on Portland City and state elected leaders to take action ahead of Saturday's rally, to make a clear statement denouncing political violence, really to draw a clear moral barrier, and to help shrink the space for what you've characterized well as increasing paramilitarism in the city. It's a letter that's not without precedent. In fact, in August of 2019, you'll remember that there was a pretty destructive, or at least a potentially destructive rally planned by a number of far-right anti-democratic groups in Portland. This was now after more than a year of pretty frequent incursions by far-right paramilitaries. And there was a strong statement. Of course, it was, pre-COVID, when there could be a press conference with folks in government and community and faith standing shoulder to shoulder. But that effort, had an impact among a number of other, effective responses that meant that the groups that were coming to Portland seeking to sow chaos and political violence, didn't have the audience or the reception that they had hoped for. And so we felt like ahead of this Saturday's rally, as you've shared, the potential for political violence is great. We are seeing that alt-right figures from around the country are flying in using very violent rhetoric in their own promotion of the rally. And we wanted to call on city and state leaders to come together for a strong response again.
So there's an unfortunate dynamic that tends to play out when it comes to the police and these events, I think. Because you've mentioned having law enforcement be on board with the idea of de-escalation. And the dynamic I'm speaking of is that the right wing comes out to fight the left wing, and the left wing comes out to fight the right wing, but also kind of to fight the cops. And it feels a lot like the cops come out to fight the left wing. Mm-hmm. And that sort of ends up in this sort of triangular situation in which, like, it's kind of 2 against 1. And to be clear, the one is looking for a fight too. So how do we avoid that happening again?
Yeah, I mean, we certainly condemn, accelerationism and political violence from any source. Although, to be clear, the majority of violence and politically motivated violence comes from alt-right sources, well documented. even in FBI statistics, right, that the majority of domestic terrorism and political violence comes from white nationalist, anti-democratic, white supremacist groups. You're right, we have seen a disproportionate response, I think, from the Portland Police Bureau on largely nonviolent civil protesters, racial justice protesters, and what seems like sometimes a hands-off approach when alt-right paramilitary actors are violent in the streets. I'm sure it is, a complicated situation. And we also think it's important to recognize the tactics, the goals, the ideology of alt-right paramilitaries. They are often deeply anti-government. They are coming to Portland with the express goal of exhausting and depleting democratic institutions, undermining democratic governance. That is not helpful for healthy city, and it's important for law enforcement to recognize that.
But the dynamic doesn't strike me as that complicated. You go to Jurassic Park and like you have a sign that says, "I hate dinosaurs. I want to fight a dinosaur," and the other side like is going to Jurassic Park and like staying in their vans and has little signs that say, "I love dinosaurs. Please don't eat me, Mr. Dinosaur." It feels like one side is more likely to be eaten by a dinosaur.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah. No, we have seen in the promotion for this Saturday's rally by Proud Boys and organizers, statements in support of law enforcement, but at the same time, really violent rhetoric, right? That they are, coming for combat. So it's important for law enforcement to take seriously the threats to community safety, and to, not be fooled by the statements in alignment with law enforcement, because really these are very threatening groups to government and to community safety.
This is something your group has called for previously, is education for law enforcement on paramilitary nationals.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. We were invited by the Portland Police Bureau to submit a proposal now over a year ago to present a training on the history, goals, tactics, ideology of alt-right paramilitaries, anti-democratic groups, and share successful case studies of how other municipalities had responded, how those groups are threatening to law enforcement and government. We haven't had an opportunity to give that training though, but we are doing a similar training with the mayor, city commissioners, and bureau and department chiefs shortly.
Oh, the city of Portland.
Mm-hmm. We are.
That's new, right? I hadn't heard about that yet.
Well, it will be public because of public meeting laws, so the cat's out of the bag. But yeah, we've been working on developing a training like that, and it's a 2-part series that starts next week. In fact, the mayor references it in his open letter, but didn't name Western State Center, but it will be public.
What's your advice to individual Portlanders? Show up and be peaceful. Don't show up. Like, take up knitting. What would you suggest?
I thought that the mayor had a creative way of ending his open letter, which was asking folks to undertake positive action to improve the health of Portland's democracy, and volunteer. So I certainly think we all do a lot to make sure that everyone can live, love, work, and worship free from bigotry and fear in Portland. So, undertaking activity to do that. We're still in the midst of COVID, right? So undertaking ways to stay safe. I think there is real potential for political violence. So I think it is, best for folks who, want to stay safe to stay away.